Okay, it's not very loud, but anyway.
Are we actually live yet? Or we started?
Yes, we're live.
Are we live? Okay, right. In which case, I'd like to welcome everyone to this Joint Staff Consultative Committee being conducted virtually with members, officers and representatives at various locations. Before the meeting starts, I'd like to invite the committee member and scrutiny officer to explain how proceedings will work and to confirm that members and officers are in attendance. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Chair. Can I confirm the following members and officers are in attendance and can hear us? We can hear them. Councillor Val Bryant.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Claire Strong.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor Rona Cameron.
Yes.
Thank you. Ian Cooper.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Rebecca Webb.
Good morning.
Thank you. Keith Fitzpatrick Matthews.
Yes, I'm here.
Good morning. And I believe that's everyone. Are there any other members or officers in attendance that I haven't called out? Okay, members may request to speak using the raised hand function, and the same function will be used to vote. The chair will notify you when it is your turn to speak. Are there any questions before we start the meeting? Okay, I will now hand back to the chair.
Thank you, Robert. Okay, item 1, apologies for absence. We've received apologies from Councillor Daniel Allen. Are there any other apologies? No. We will move on then to item 2, minutes for the 8th of January. I'd like to propose that we take them as read and approve them as a true record. Can I have a seconder, please?
I'll second.
Thanks, Claire. Any objections? Any comments? Okay, then those are approved if there are no comments. Okay. Sorry, I keep losing everyone. Right. Chair's announcements. This meeting is being audio and video recorded, and the recordings will be available on ModGov or the North Herts Council YouTube page. Members are reminded to make declarations of interest before an item. The detailed reminder about this and speaking rights is set out under Chair's announcements on the agenda. Item 4, Staff Consultation Forum. Ian Cooper to present. Thank you, Ian.
Thank you, Chair. We've got 2 sets of minutes this time, fairly standard in terms of content, usual opportunity for staff to raise any issues and for us to give updates on the more significant things happening across the council. Sometimes they align quite well with our staff briefing, so sometimes we have shorter meetings where we have always discussed a lot of stuff at staff briefing in general. Just sort of 2 particular bits to pick out this time. There's the usual restructures, but also quite a good section on IT in one of the meetings where we sort of got some advice around passwords and social engineering and the risks that those pose to officers and in general. And also there's an item on the other agenda around conflicts of interest and sort of discussing that policy and the changes there. Happy to take any questions on any of the contents in those minutes.
Does anyone have any questions? Yes, Claire.
Yes, why have we only got 2 sets? We normally see 3 sets.
I imagine
That's my first question.
Yes, I imagine it's because we just were a bit late approving the February ones and they weren't quite in time for this meeting. We'll pick them up. It might be my fault. Sometimes I'm a bit late to be reviewing them, but say we'll pick up. We have 4 sets next time just to make up for it.
And also, is there any update on the staff restructuring, or should we pick that up later?
In terms of senior management one or a different, which one do you want to talk
I
about?
was interested in the museum one.
Yes, I have to say that's the first time I've heard about the museum one when I read those papers. I'm not that it's I suggest it's not a matter, it's an operational matter, it's not really a matter for councils. But yes, I'm interested in that one too.
It might say we have to provide offline for any detail, because obviously there'll be individuals affected, so we might just do it offline unless Rebecca's got any headlines she wants to say about progress, but otherwise we'll pick up that outside the meeting.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you. I don't have an update on that restructure and the specifics, but we can definitely pick that up offline. I was going to mention the point about there only being 2 SCF notes. It's because we merged 2 of the meetings. SCF normally is at the beginning of the month, and of course with January and the bank holidays and Christmas period, we pushed that slightly and then bought the February one to merge it together. So that's why. So there
Thank
won't
you,
be
Rebecca.
3, there will only be 2.
That makes absolute sense. Thank you very much. Can I just ask a sort of follow-on question? I'll be want to be very careful about the sensitivities to staff, but about the principle of restructuring a team. I have experience in the past in this council where a team was restructured, and because of the sensitivities around who did get the supervisor job, there was a kind of compromise where somebody reported to a different team, and it led to all sorts of problems, and eventually it had to be resolved. And can I encourage us to be brave around these things? If there is a supervisor's job and 3 people go for it and 1 person gets it, they need to be appointed. And if the other people don't like it, then they can either stay or go. I just feel quite strongly that we need to be brave about these things. It needs to be a fair and objective process, absolutely, and we need to be sensitive to the individuals, but we shouldn't make exceptions because someone's not happy about the outcome when there's been a fair and objective interview process and there's been a consultation around the structure beforehand. We need to be brave about these things. That's my view. I don't know whether you've got any comment, Rebecca, because I'm not an HR professional and wouldn't claim to be, but I've seen where this goes wrong and leads to long, problems for a number of years because it wasn't dealt with at the time.
Yes. So we would always go through a robust consultation process. We take into account the feedback, any concerns, respond to questions during that consultation period. Change management is tricky and it can be difficult for people. And so we are always sensitive to how we manage that and make sure we're clear with our communication. There are also things to pick up on there around development. So if you're looking at somebody moving into a role that is a more senior role, that development, support, coaching that they get is going to be key in ensuring they're then able to manage the people that they may have been colleagues with or peers with previously. So, yes.
I understand it's a difficult process, and I noticed in the paper you had written about the coaching and the mentoring and the management training that would be needed. Personally, I've had experience of recruiting someone who I line managed in a charity, and then that person got a job where she became my line manager, and we worked it out without any problem. So it can be done. But as you say, it's not always easy. But it sounds like you've got it all in hand, Rebecca. But I just think it's important that we do we are brave in these decisions. I don't think Claire's got anything.
The only thing I think you did pick up on was one key word, which is about people development, and I think that's very important that we do. Actually, if we have staff that have got capability and potential, we do give them those opportunities. And to me, that's always key, that people are on a journey in their lives with their careers, and we're there to help them. But development also means sometimes they do need training, and I think that's the other key, that we must support our employees by making sure they have both of those to be able to use. And again, I was a senior manager, and to me, whenever one was promoting people or giving them those opportunities, and if from that they could use it and then leave and go on somewhere else, I always said one didn't regret it. One just felt very proud that one was part of their career journey.
Absolutely, Claire. Thank you for that. And I think later on in the staff survey, we'll be talking about some of the actions around career and progression. And it's really important that there are progression routes for our staff. So it's great that there are these opportunities. Rona.
Yes, I do totally support what Council has been saying, and I noticed in the minutes of our own meeting that we don't have any plans this year, or no plans at the moment, for women's confidence workshops, but I wondered whether, in light of the big reorganisation to do with devolution, which will be taking place, could we reconsider if there's enough resource, or put some resource in? It could be in-house, some confidence raising workshops, particularly for women, you know, just to remind people that, you know, to update their CVs and to use all of their experience. And I noticed there were 16 new starters in January. So even though we did it in previous years, we won't have captured everybody because, you know, there's always new people who are coming along. Thank you.
Thank you, Rona. I think that's a great suggestion. Rebecca, can you just respond to that? Do you think confidence raising workshops would be a possibility, or do we do them already? Or
we do them occasionally. We don't have an ongoing, we don't have them every year, but I have got notes from the last meeting where this group showed interest and they were keen for those confidence workshops to take place. So we are looking at it as part of the gender pay gap action planning.
okay, yes, that makes sense, because you particularly mentioned women, Rona, and I think that there is evidence to support that too. Okay, Val.
Thank you. Following on from that, on the devolution and local government reorganisation, we're just at the beginning, but there was a major conference on Thursday and Friday last week run by District Councils Network, and it was Anthony, Joe Doggett, Daniel and myself, and Joe Doggett particularly is interested in this area. So there is information coming from the DNC and from LGA on this, because of course everyone's in the same boat apart from the authorities that have already been through it. So yeah, yes, it's on our radar, and certainly I take on board everything you say.
Thank you, Val. Rona.
Just going back to the staff consultative committee, it didn't come up in the minutes, but I noticed in the staff survey action plan that there was a request that councillors sometimes attend the meetings so they can understand the pressures on the staff. I hope I've read that properly. And I didn't notice on the attendance whether any councillors have been attending. And I would be willing to volunteer.
Oh, even better, Rona. Thank you. Rebecca, is that a possibility, or maybe Ian wants to answer that, of having a member rep on the staff consultation forum, or is that not the way it's set up? Not appropriate?
I don't think it's a good idea for staff consultation forum, given we do talk about a lot of things you probably wouldn't be relevant, and also it is kind of supposed to be a free discussion. I think what we would look at is, and we have done in the past, is for the staff briefing sessions, which are a much wider group of staff. We usually get at least 100 people attending those, usually online. Those we do have councillors coming on to on an ad hoc basis, sort of to talk about what they're up to and what their kind of priorities are, but also to listen into what's going on from a staff perspective as well. So I think that's probably a better forum for councillors to engage with the wider group of staff rather than staff consultation forum, which is quite a narrow group of staff. Okay,
thank you, Ian. So how do members know about those? How do they get invited?
Comms arrange them, so I pick up with them around sort of how frequently we want to look at inviting councillors, and also looking at kind of the content of what we'd want to discuss.
Okay.
In general, what we'll try to pick up is usually it's members of cabinet or the leader of the council, because they can obviously then give an indication to staff around what their kind of direction is in terms of the council plan and those kind of documents. But yeah, we can also look at how we then widen it out to kind of pick up other councillors too, and what we could kind of coordinate as kind of some content for that to be useful both to councillors and to staff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it wouldn't be particularly useful to invite all councillors, but maybe as this is the Joint Staff Consultative Committee, maybe the members of this committee could be invited to the ones that you consider would be appropriate for some of us to attend. And obviously, I appreciate leaders and cabinet. That makes sense. And then at least there'll be cross-party representation as well, potentially. I don't particularly want to go to any more meetings, but I think it is a good suggestion. So maybe you can make that happen. Thanks. Okay. Any further questions on item 4, staff consultation forum? No. Okay, I think we have crossed over a little bit to some of the later things, but we'll pick those up in a bit. So moving on to item 5, the information note, the HR update from Rebecca. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you, Chair. I'll run through the paper starting with 3.2, which is our update on recruitment. The table, as usual, highlights our recruitment data and key performance indicator for Q3, October to December, and a comparison between the previous year, 2023 to 2024. And you'll see that we've met the target for this quarter. During the quarter this year, we had a similar number of vacancies, including apprentices in HR, communications and Careline, and a similar number of vacancies were filled at the first attempt in both quarters. There was one post that wasn't filled, and that was a senior planning officer. Moving on to turnover, this is still hovering around the 9% mark. This group's previously requested a comparison on turnover data, and I believe that the best way forward is to compare like with like and use our LGA benchmarking tool for this. That data on turnover won't be available until the end of the financial year. So my suggestion is that we continue with our quarterly monitoring, and then I bring a annual comparison for you to see once a year. 3.4 covers an update on national pay bargaining. There's been a claim from the unions, which is detailed in the information note. The main headline is for a £3,000 increase on each spinal point. It's expected that once the employers' national briefings have been completed, that there will be an offer made by the employers, and we'll continue to monitor the progress of this and update staff and this group as necessary. Moving to 3.5, National Apprenticeship Week took place in February, and our communications apprentice developed the council's communications for this week. This included social media posts and a quote from a previous apprentice who is now a service director at the council. An example of the communication is shown in the information note. Our graduates have almost completed their first rotations at the council, and they'll be moving on to their next service areas in April. This will be their second of 4 rotations. It's our intention to recruit a further graduate through Impact, the National Graduate Scheme, later this year. 3.7 is a short update on learning and development. We continue to raise awareness on resources on our learning management system, and there are several development activities that are linked to the staff survey action plan, which will be covered later in this meeting. The inclusion group in February focused their discussions on the equalities data and provided feedback on a poster which has been developed to further promote support available for staff. And this is an action that's come from the staff survey action plan. The Equalities, Diversity and Inclusion e-learning module that was launched in October is now at an 86% completion rate. So that's an increase of 6% since January. And we're continuing to work with Inclusion Group and managers to increase this figure. And then finally, on absence, the last 12 months has been less than 9 days lost to sickness per full-time employee. Our total is 8.84, which is slightly lower than my report last time to this group. In this quarter, we've seen a reduction of COVID cases, but a high number of cold and flu type illnesses, which is to be expected at this time of year. Short-term absences remain relatively high, but we have seen a number of return to works from employees on long-term sickness absence. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Does anyone have a question?
No, I think that, I think the sickness, to be honest, I just think the sickness numbers that you've reported, I don't think many people nowadays are actually reporting if it's COVID is COVID. I think a lot of COVID is actually out there, but people think that they've just had flu because the symptoms are very, very similar. So I think unless people
not everyone is testing anymore.
No, exactly. And I think, the fact that you mentioned that was a high, I think it's just the norm now.
Yeah. Can I just make a couple of comments? It's really good to hear that some of the long-term people who've been long-term absent have now returned to work. I think that's something to be applauded and well done, because it's very difficult. Having worked in a mental health, I mean, I don't know what their reasons were, but having worked in for mind, I know how difficult it is when people have been off long term with a mental health problem to actually get them back into work. So well done. I think that's to be congratulated. Well done on the staff and team involved in that. And it's excellent news. And the absences seem to be, as you say, they're going down a bit, so that's good. And thank you for taking on board my question regarding benchmarking our recruitment and retention. And I think that's absolutely reasonable. A report once a year to benchmark against the LGA, that's fine. I think that would be really helpful for this committee. So congratulations on the work you're doing. I doubt whether the NJ, the trade unions, will get what they're asking for, but we'll wait and see in terms of pay. Considerably more than they got last time. What was it, 1,920, and now they're asking for 3,000. Seems a lot more. And the vacancies is good news. Not a surprise that the one vacancy that's unfilled is in planning. That is notoriously difficult, and there's a national recruitment project problem which a lot of people are working on to try and solve, but it's not a quick fix. So it looks like we're going in the right direction. So thank you very much, Rebecca. Any other questions or comments?
No.
Okay, in which case let's move on to item 6, which is the discussion paper on the staff survey. This is for Ian Cooper to present. Thank you, Ian.
Thank you, Chair. So starting with the kind of cover report first. The top section talks about how we conduct the survey, which I've already spoken about here before, because we've done quite a lot of comments on the survey here. And then the process went through to develop the action plan. So it's been quite a long time since the staff survey, but that's because we've done a lot of work on developing this action plan, both in terms of analysing the actual results and thinking about potential actions, consulting on those actions, both through senior management group and also at staff briefings of all staff. In terms of the action plan, as an action plan, it's a list of actions, lists you want to do. There are quite a lot of things on there, but I think it's worth highlighting that we are a good place to work, and that was borne out by the staff survey and by general feedback we get from staff. But obviously, we always want to improve. That's why we've got the action plan, but don't want to kind of make it sound like we're a bad place to work. We're having lots of actions because we want to always get better. Particular focus on not feeling safe. That's not because there's a bad culture of that anywhere in the organisation. It's just the fact that we've got a few people who said they didn't feel safe in certain situations. So really want to hone in on that and make sure we have actions to address that. Workloads and pay are always going to be a theme that we will see, I think, in staff surveys in local governments. We're obviously trying to do actions to address that, but fundamentally we are limited by what we can afford to do. And we'll continue to be honest with staff that we'll try to do some things, but we can't do everything in that regard. There was a perception coming out following discussion of staff survey once it had been completed that we were cutting budgets everywhere, and that included training. We've never cut any training budgets recently, so we have taken action to sort of re-emphasise that, particularly myself, because I often go into staff briefings and talk about there's no money. So it was down to me to kind of re-emphasise that staff training is important. I think we discussed that in the previous item around the importance of staff training. And we are looking, we're going to do a staff conference to support our Together value. Still working exactly what that look like, but probably later in the autumn, probably across a few days. So each person only attended one day, just the fact we can't even get 400 people in one room at the same time. But, try to split into sort of across 3 or 4 days would make it more manageable. The same content on each day, but a chance to get a good number of our staff together and talk about some of the issues they're facing and sort of do some training with them as well. So yeah, and then also the appendix is the full detail about what the staff survey action plan is. We have now discussed that at staff briefing, and we've published it on the intranet. The last time I checked, there've been no actual comments. I'm hoping that's a good sign of people's support we've got on there. I won't go through all the lines in detail, but I invite you to pick out anything you want us to talk about. So any questions?
Thank you very much, Ian. It is extremely detailed, and there's some very interesting actions there. Does anyone have any questions or anything related to the actions? Yes, Val.
Thank you. I was interested to hear about the staff conference and the need to repeat it 3 days. Have you thought of hiring a larger venue, for instance, the Spirella?
Ian?
Just a thought.
Yeah, it's just around imagine that number of people, just where we can kind of get the interaction with that number of people. If we looked at 400 people at one time. So yeah, we can look at it. Obviously it comes with additional costs, but we'll have a think about it, whether that would work. So we'll think about the content, then think about how we then scale it up. But the current planning is potentially across a few days. But we'll think about
Just a
whether
thought.
one go would be good.
Yeah, I think the other consideration about across the 3 days rather than 1 day is availability, because presumably there are some people that have to be, some services that have to be covered every single day, and therefore running it over 3 times might enable everyone to come. I don't know whether that was a consideration as well. Whilst it's a great idea to have everyone in the room all together, in practice that probably is difficult to achieve, and when you want to continue running the services.
And also we have a lot of people who work flexibly, so we have people who are
Yes,
on certain days and part-time
yeah,
stuff. It's important.
don't work certain days of the week
well.
and that kind of thing. So if you can spread it on different days, that might enable more staff to attend. Rona.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Ian. I was pleased to see so many positive things in the action plan, and that generally, given the situation we're all in, that people seem happier. But I wondered if, I know for a fact that things are going to get tricky because of this devolution, and staff are going to feel under a lot of pressure and worry. Overall, that applies to every level of staff. But I'm aware, perhaps I'm worrying too much about this, but I do feel that with the changes to the refuse collection and the bins, and particularly here in Baldock, with consultations, not just on growing Baldock, but we've also got consultations, which is not to do with the district council, on the 20-mile-an-hour zone. And now people have had a leaflet through their door on a consultation on the town council. I'm sort of getting aware that quite a few of the more vocal members of our community are stirring things up. And I feel this will impact on the people who answer the telephones, particularly the customer care situation. And I just wondered if you could tell me a bit about what special position are we making for the people in the customer care, the people who answer the telephones. I don't know what their salary band is, but I'd be interested to know, not particulars, actual remuneration, but what band they're in, and whether we give enough training and support and actual personnel, because this is going to be a very, very busy period for them. So I'd just like to ask for more support, really, for the customer care and the people who answer the telephones, if possible.
Thank you, Rona, for that question. I think it's really important, and I know our lines were over busy and went down, and there were led to a lot of resident complaints this week. Is it Ian who will take that, or Rebecca?
I will try and take some of it, but I think we'll have to take some of it outside the meeting, because I think it'd be best to get a perspective from the actual manager of the team and to how the team operates itself, and I can't give you that answer, even if I wanted to. So I think that's probably the best place there. Obviously, you won't surprise, so they were probably one of the lower levels of pay in the organisation, but that doesn't mean we don't support them. They get the same support everyone else gets, which obviously includes things like our employee assistance programme, as well as everything we do in general in that staffing area. I know they have had some issues with recruitment in terms of not having enough staff at various points. So I know there's been lots of work done on that to try and get more people in to get the right numbers, because obviously that helps alleviate the workload as well. In relation to your sort of first point about local reorganisation, yes, it's a real concern. We've had a discussion about the union with the union last week. They raised it around that being a regular thing to talk to them about, around the impact of the reorganisation. We're trying to be honest with staff in staff briefings around what's happening and what we know and what we don't know. I think so far, I think everyone seemed okay with what's going on, and it's obviously still quite a way off in terms of timelines. But it's something we've got on the radar. Cabinet agreed a risk last night in relation to local organisation and devolution, and part of that is the HR implications, both in terms of workload to get there, and the potential impact on people in terms of change. So it's definitely not something we're kind of blind to, but equally at this stage we don't know what the answer is going to be, and therefore we don't want to kind of cause undue concern. So we're kind of trying to get the right balance at the moment between those two angles on it, and then we'll kind of work as we know more. We'll do more with staff to progress. I also know at Cabinet last night there was mention about sort of doing some sort of staff surveys, checking on people in general and in relation to that. So that's something we'll pick up in due course to kind of to sort of maybe do that regular check-in, see how things are going.
That's very helpful. Thanks, Ian. So that regular check-in would be a bit like you did during the COVID period, just a quick check on staff wellbeing. That sounds helpful. Can I just add, I'll come back to Rona in a minute just to check that she's happy, hasn't got any further questions, but I just wanted to ask, and you may not know the answer, maybe for the service director, do frontline customer service centre staff get any opportunity to debrief if they've had a sort of really angry person or a really emotional call to handle? Do they get that opportunity? Rebecca looks like she's going to answer for me.
Yes, they do. So in both CSC and in Careline, and that's done on a case-by-case basis. But yes, the team leaders are present, are around, and able to allow people some time off of the calls to be able to do that. Yes.
Excellent to hear. It's really important that we look after our staff mental well-being and that, because it can be a very traumatic and emotional experience if you've got difficult people on the line. Rona, did you want to come back on anything that Ian said, or are you satisfied with the answer?
I just wanted to say that I think the people I've met since I've been on the council in the last year, I've found them to be very helpful and very talented and very well educated and trained. But these aren't the people that the public see. They haven't met any of you here, I don't think. The first contact that our residents get with the council is on the telephone usually. And that's why I'm so concerned. I don't think most organisations, this is not just the district council, they should put more resources into the first people who interact with their customers, because that is the image of the council that we're putting out to our residents. They won't ever see the service director probably, but their first image of the council and how responsive the council is and how well we're doing is all resting on the shoulders, as you've said, some of the worst paid people in the council. So that's what I'm concerned about. I do think it's an issue that ought to be taken up more.
Thank you, Rona, and point well made. And this is why it's important that everyone within the organisation embraces the values of the council, understands them, understands what we're about. And I think from what I've heard, we're doing our best to HR and the service directors are doing their best to make sure that happens. And that the people feel valued and have the support they need. But it is really important. You're absolutely right. I think councillors and frontline staff are the first port of call in terms of the reputation of the council. So it's really important. Okay, I'm going to go to Claire next. She had her hand up next. Unless, Val, did you have a specific point on this one that you want?
Yeah, I'm a cabinet member for this area.
Right.
Two things. First of all, at cabinet last night, I was the person who spoke about the plans that we're making to mitigate the problems with devolution will cause. I will not repeat that for you. And secondly, on the actual frontline customer care, I meet with Joe Dufficy, who is the director, and David and Chris on a monthly basis, so that we actually they report back and we discuss the situation. And at the last month's meeting, we are aware that at the moment the staffing, we're not fully staffed. A lot of staff are new, and that the contact rate, the actual number of seconds to pick up the phone, etc., has gone down. So that's something we're looking at. So it is current at the moment. It is something we're working through, and it's to do with the fact we've got so much new staffing, really. And I meet with them again next week, and I'll take your concerns, particularly Rona's concerns, to the meeting next week. We do give support to individuals. There was a case in the last few weeks, a care line, where a member of care line staff was on the phone when there was a serious fire. And there was great support around there. So yes, so we are aware, and I'm on it.
Thank you, Val. That's very helpful. Claire.
Yes, thank you, Ruth. Very interested to see the staff survey, particularly as it's been many years now since one has been done. I think the one that probably I've homed in on, because that's the one that's always important, is about our staff. And that's the bit on the action plan for feeling safe and supported at work. And I know we had the discussion last time about how we could promote more about mental health awareness and mental health day. So that's really good. But maybe it's just the way I'm reading it, but there seems to be a bit of a theme in some of the action items that are going to be dealt with. And it kind of struck me if there was some underlying problem that this is just on the surface of, and particularly on things like the complaints around, I don't really like to use the word, but, you know, like aggression, bullying, or whatever else, like member officer protocols and those sort of things. And we as councillors, I do feel that if there is something that's come out of the survey on that, then that really needs to be highlighted to me. I mean, it's the actions for councillors in here. This was the members' survey, but there seems to be quite a few actions in here that I think we as members need to be looking at and addressed. And again, to you as chair, Ruth, you know, how are we going to get that into and across? Because just saying, oh, we need to go as a training, I think perhaps there's an opportunity that maybe we need something a little bit more than just saying, oh, we're all going to go on our annual training that includes, you know, equality, diversity, inclusion, and the member officer protocol. I think there's more of a perhaps, maybe I'm reading something into this that there is not there, but it's certainly, I had a few sort of warning bells when I read some of the actions in this plan.
Claire, thank you very much. I was going to pick up on the same issue. I quite agree with you. When I was working with Judy Billing, we tried hard to get some training for members and around member officer relationship. Personally, I think it's a fascinating relationship. I mean, who would choose to set up an organisation like this? And when it works well, it's great, but it can go very wrong. And as a group leader, I've certainly had to deal with some councillors who've been very unreasonable towards officers, especially junior officers. So I think it's an important thing that councillors understand the different relationships and what is okay and what isn't. Obviously, as councillors, we have to be able to challenge, and we have to be able to, particularly in the administration, set priorities. But we shouldn't be interfering in operational matters. So it's a fine line sometimes, and I think it's even as quite an experienced councillor, it's difficult. You don't always get it right. So I would like to see more of that training. I know Judy started it not long before she died, actually, and I would like to see more of that. Keith and Judy did a sort of double act. And I wonder, I notice it says to run working with councillors training. I don't know, that was probably for staff, wasn't it? But we also need to do it from the member side. So Ian looks like he wants to comment. Thank you, Ian.
Yeah, I mean, there were a large number, but there were a small number of comments in relation to the working relationship with councillors and the impact on officers of that. And some of that is trying to address that. I mean, since the survey, we've done the big lot of training for all the members post the elections in last year. which did pick up on some of the themes here, and we will look to incorporate that into the regular training each year, ongoing, to kind of re-emphasize message about that working relationship. I think a lot of what we're trying to do for this action plan is to acknowledge that, yeah, we can do a training for councillors, do training for officers around what the relationship should look like. Doesn't mean it's going to work perfectly all the time, but the important thing, I think, from the staff survey is that we give officers confidence that if they call out anything they're concerned about, we will take action on it as officers, and obviously expect councillors, where they realise they have kind of crossed the line, to also kind of acknowledge that and react accordingly. So that's the important thing, is that we always support staff and councillors that kind of to get the relationship right, where and take action where things aren't working very well. That's the important bit, I think, that we're trying to get through here.
Okay, thank you, Ian. That's really helpful. Right, does that answer your question, Claire, or do you want to come back?
It doesn't. Yes, and thank you for that, Ian. But what I think my takeaway from this is that there should be an action in there that's directly a bit more hard on what we, as a responsibility that councillors have into addressing concerns and needs of the employees from the workforce. And perhaps I'm not saying, maybe I can talk to you on that, Ian, because obviously you've got the data and you know what it has. But I just feel that, if there's an area that needs some work, then we need an action to address that. A hard one.
So Claire, just to clarify, are you saying that the action on ensure councillors, especially Cabinet, are aware of the work pressures that we're already under, and that there is not capacity for new work without more staff, that needs to be more robust, stronger? Is that what you're saying? Because there is that action already in there.
There's that one. It's the one around feeling safe and supported at work is in there. It's the actions in there that I'm particularly.
Which section is that? Still in the high workload section?
It's no, it's in feeling safe and supported at work, inclusive section.
Oh, right, okay. So
there's a continuing annual training of councillors, which includes the training, but it's to me, is that a sufficiency? Maybe we need a councillors survey to try tease out where we think there should be improvements that we, as a group of councillors together, collectively, all parties in the room, feeling of how we are being supportive to all our staff.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Okay.
I don't know whether Ian wants to come back on that, but
no, you're trying to create a culture in which officers are able to report if they felt unsafe or felt that they've been unduly pressured by a councillor to do something. The problem with the councillor training as well is that not all councillors attend it, and dare I say, it may be the ones who most need to don't. And actually, just on a practical point on that, I wanted to make the point, and I don't know whether I've missed something, and maybe Rebecca would know the answer to this, but GrowZone used to send me reminders about when I was supposed to do things, and I haven't had any for a very long time, so I don't know whether the new GrowZone is not sending the reminders that it should be, because I think that's actually quite helpful. Rebecca, would you mind answering that?
Yes, it should be sending reminders, so I will have a look at that one.
Yeah, it may be that I haven't
maybe you're up to date,
or missed it. Or I might be up to date, yes. But it feels like a long time. Okay, I'm going back to Ian because he can respond to what Claire was saying.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very happy that we have a conversation, probably with group leaders, probably with maybe member training champions around this theme, and look what more we can do. Because everything we can do, both practically to stop the situation in the first place, through anything we can do, and also to reassure staff that we are taking it seriously, is always a positive. So
exactly.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm trying to get at. I want something more hard on us councillors.
Yeah, I think that point is well made, and I think Ian's taken that on board, so that's great. Val.
Thank you. We are in the middle of myself and Ian are in the middle of doing a major piece of work related to this with White Ribbon, and with the White Ribbon Working Party meets about every 6 weeks. And we have got a 42-page action plan, which involves a lot of it to do with relationships between members and officers. And I think the first thing to do is I will send round to the members of this committee a copy of the action plan, so just in case you've not seen it. And the second thing is that we need to promote this particularly to counsellors, because the response amongst the officers has been reasonable. The response amongst counsellors has been quite low. Even though we have passed this as a motion, etc., etc. So, if I may, Ruth, as your chair, if I can actually send this to the members of the committee, and then you get, I think it will give you an idea of the scope of what we're involved in, because it is a major piece of work.
Thank you, Val. I'm glad to hear that's happening. Yes, and I'm always encouraging as a learning champion, always encouraging my members to attend training, and I try and lead by example, make sure I'm up to date and go on all the training that's available. Okay, any further questions on the staff survey? No, thank you very much. I think we've had a very good discussion, and it looks like a very comprehensive list of actions, which are mostly very smart. So I'm glad to see that, and some of which have already been completed. So well done on that huge piece of work. Claire.
Yeah, I was going to say one question is, I mean, we've seen it. What I would like to ask is actually we can get an update from time to time on the status of the actions.
Yes. So like a tracker that says which ones are ongoing. Well, a lot of them are ongoing, but the ones that have got dates, yes, we should get an update on that. That's I'm sure that's possible, isn't it, Ian?
Yeah, we'll have to start. We'll
Rebecca's nodding.
Updated. So yeah, we'll also keep you updated as well at the sort of similar sort of time.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's excellent. Okay, well, let's move on to the next agenda item, which is neurodiversity in the workplace discussion paper. Rebecca to present.
Thank you, Rebecca. Chair. I'll run through the paper. Neurodiversity refers to a world where neurological differences are acknowledged and respected. It's an umbrella term used to explain ways in which people's brains work differently. North Herts Council are committed to supporting all employees, and the subject of neurodiversity has been discussed at our inclusion group. This provided an opportunity to share lived experiences of neurodiversity, both in the workplace and the impact on life in general. At this meeting, it was reiterated that if the council are informed of an individual's neurodiversity, it can help us to provide the relevant support, both to those who do have a formal diagnosis and those who do not. We recognise that many neurodivergent people do not have a formal diagnosis, either by choice or due to issues associated with seeking a diagnosis. We do have staff who have declared a neurodivergence, and we have been able to implement a range of support options for them. We appreciate that some members may be reluctant to share information about their neurodivergent traits if they do not have a formal diagnosis, but they may still have support needs. Some people may not feel the need to seek a formal diagnosis if they receive empathy and support in the workplace. Part of what we do to support a neurodiverse workforce is about awareness and education. For the past few years, we've shared a timetable of webinars during Neurodiversity Week, which happens to be this week, to allow people to further their knowledge and better support themselves or their colleagues. We also have on-demand modules available on our learning management system and articles in the staff magazine to support neurodiversity and inclusion more widely. As part of our review of the recruitment process, we're trialling transparent interviews. This is the process of allowing candidates to have sight of interview questions ahead of the interview and allows neurodiverse candidates and others to better prepare for the interview and present the best version of themselves. The Neurodiversity Network was requested through the inclusion group, and the first meeting was held in December last year. It was well attended. The first meeting was open to anyone, and a number of resources were shared, and it provided an opportunity for attendees to share personal experiences. We've put a range of adjustments in place to support staff and promote neuro-inclusive environment, and these include encouraging the use of spell check software, adapting the background colour of the screen, providing a desk in a quiet area, allowing extra time for written communication, and no formal diagnosis is needed for adjustments like these to be put in place.
Thank you, Rebecca. Are there any questions? Did I see a hand up, Val? No.
Yeah, almost. I'm about to put my hand up. Just to say that it is Neurodiversity Week, and I know that the comms have gone out on this. Certainly for the Labour group, I actually have written to them and said, could they possibly do one of the programmes? So just look at one of the programmes that are there. If each member did that, that'd be a really good start, I think, and make us much wiser.
I think I quite agree, but the first I knew it was Neurodiversity Week was when I read this paper. So I didn't get any advance money. Rona.
Thanks, Chair. Well, I just wanted to thank Rebecca for her report, because I think that's really good. It's something we're going to have to face more and more if we're going to get more people into work, and so I'm pleased to hear about the mitigations you're taking in respect to interviews and things. I was going to ask about Neurodiversity Week as well. Has anything happened so far? I mean, what's happened?
Yes, so there's a range of webinars that we've promoted. They're running throughout the week. So staff have been encouraged to sign up and attend those. We also released some resources for the personal development morning, which was last Friday, so ahead of this week. Really, because it isn't just about this week where we should be focusing on increasing our awareness. It's the whole time. So yes, and if you can't attend the webinar when it's taking place, they are then on the website for later use, so you can watch them at any point. There's loads of resources out there, so we will be continuing to share that information with staff throughout the year.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. I just had one question. I see you're trialing this recruitment process, which we talked about once before, I think, in one of these meetings. I wondered if you had any indication of how that's going, or is it too early to tell?
We've been running the trial for a little while, and it's not on every single job at the moment. We appreciate that we need to also work on the hiring manager skills and making sure that their questioning skills are really good, so that we can get the best out of people and really test that information that they're providing at interview. So far, on the jobs that we've used this for, we've had positive feedback from the hiring manager, from the successful candidate, and from unsuccessful candidates, because we're trying to look at the whole group of people involved. So far it's going well. We are focused at the moment on more junior posts, and we're starting to broaden that trial to the middle grades and see how we get on there as well.
Thank you very much. That's really helpful. Good to hear that it's positive so far, and no doubt when you've had a reasonable time on the trial, you will report back some more overall findings about how it's going and how you want to take it forward. Excellent. Are there any more questions on this paper? No? In which case, I think we're on to item 8, future discussion topics. So we have a list here of what we have done in the last few years and what we might do next. Now, Chair's privilege, I was going to suggest that succession planning and development and microaggressions and unconscious bias in the workplace might be quite a good follow-up to some of the actions on the staff survey. I don't know what other people think. Any thoughts about that?
Yes, I agree.
Yep, it's fine.
So Ian and Rebecca, would that work for you as a topic for the next meeting?
I thought that sounded like 2 topics, Ruth.
Well, I think we could probably cover them both in one. What do Ian and Rebecca think?
I'm happy to have 2 discussion papers. That works for me, yes.
Okay. I don't know when our next meeting is, but I imagine it's the next civic year. So it would be in June or something like that. June, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So it may be different people on this board, on this committee. Who knows? Don't know what the other groups are doing, but I'm going to have a bit of a reshuffle, I think.
Oh, I see,
Oh, I
yeah.
love it. I love this committee.
Ah, well, if you want to stay on it, I'm sure you can.
Why is Keith laughing?
If I may say so, you're very good on this committee because you ask questions that are, you know, probing questions, which is what we need. And make good suggestions. So we need people who are actively involved. So that's good, as does Rona, by the way. So I think we've got a good committee. So, but we'll see what happens. So it may be different people next in June. So if anybody got any other suggestions to go on the list for future meetings?
Not at the moment.
Okay, so we'll take those two then, succession planning and development of microaggressions and unconscious bias in the workplace for the next meeting in June. And then in June, we can discuss what we would like to do next. Is that okay with everyone?
Yeah.
Yeah, seeing some nodded heads. Okay, then I think that brings us to the end of the meeting. And it does actually say on the notes that it's the last meeting of the civic year. So the new meeting dates will be announced in due course. I mean, I think they are drafted, but they have to obviously be agreed by full council. So so I may see some of you in June and I may not. Thank you very much for attending. Thank you to our officers who've been in support. Thank you for all your hard work. I think there's some excellent work going on amongst the staff, and so thank you particularly to Rebecca for all your work, and to Ian. Thank you, and have a good day.
Thanks for chairing, Ruth.
Yes, my pleasure. All right, bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.